Good morning to this very first expert panel in this theater today. So thank you for being here. Thanks for the two main protagonists today, Stefan and Jas. And of course, a big thank you to the NOAH team and the IAG marketing team, in particular Martin and Xenia. You've done a great work. Thank you for that. I'm Bjoern. I'm a managing director with IAG Investment Banking Group. We are an investment banking boutique specializing in internet and tech. So basically, we are advising founders and their investors when they want to sell, when they want to exit their company. We also help them raise growth capital. And of course, we help corporates to design and to implement their digitization strategy. Today, we want to talk about the rise of vertical brands in the digital space. And before we go into that, let me just take a moment to set the stage here. Of course, everybody knows that the retail sector has undergone dramatic change. Everybody knows that. We have the internet. We have players like Amazon. Amazon just bought Whole Foods. I think it's a major step, which is, of course, a very important driver of the change in the retail sector. At the same time, players like Amazon and eBay and these types of players, they're not the only ones, of course, driving change. It's companies like Horizn and Eve that are contributing to that dramatic change. And they're actually disrupting, I think, the retail space. And we're going to talk about that today, what you can do with so-called vertical brands, with direct-to-consumer business models. And we're going to discuss today, this morning, what that means for investors, for customers, but also for the established incumbents. So before we start, let me just take a moment and introduce these two gentlemen here. We have Stefan. Let's start on the far end. Stefan is, of course, the founder of Horizn Studios. He founded Horizn in 2015. He started his career at Deutsche Bank. He is a brand expert. He, among other things, he founded a leading brand consultancy. But in, when was it, 2013, 14, you joined Project A as Director Brand Ventures, and out of that he created Horizn Studios. And of course, he's going to introduce us to Horizn in a minute. And also we have Jas with us. Jas is the founder and CEO of Eve, so he's selling mattresses online. He earned an MBA from Cambridge. He worked as a consultant with Accenture. He was a member of the senior management team at CityDeal and Groupon UK. He also headed the UK operations of Zalando, and he founded Eve in 2014. So these are the main protagonists, and I would like to start with a very simple question, and let's start with Stefan, maybe. So what is Horizn Studios? What do you guys do?
All right. Well, Horizn is the first vertical player in the luggage industry in Europe. And as such, we're what some people call a V-commerce player. V-commerce player are described as vertically integrated in terms of their whole operation. So we control the entire value chain from design, development to over-marketing, distribution, and after-sales or CRM, of course. In the same time, or while we're doing that, mainly online, we do 95% of our revenue online. It's pretty much what Warby Parker does with the eyewear industry, or what Casper or Eve is doing in the mattress industry. So we're disrupting a very wholesale-driven market with an online-first, direct-to-consumer vertical business approach.
Cool. And Jas, what do you guys do?
So we sell mattresses online. We launched just over 2 years ago, selling one mattress in the UK, and we've since expanded our range to sell other bedding products like toppers and sheets and other things, and we're now selling across 16 countries in Europe.
So, and by the way, of course, if you have questions or would like to contribute something, we have a mic floating around somewhere, so please raise your hand, and then, of course, we would love to make this as interactive as possible. But let me start with a question, very simple one. A simple question, but of course it's a complex answer. So what do you guys do differently? So why is it possible that you have successfully broken into segments in the retail sector and brands that have been dominated by these large players for decades? So what do you guys do differently?
Well, I would say in the competitive advantage, or one of the major differentiators, lies in the business model itself. Is by really operating vertically integrated and circumnavigating or cutting out all middlemen, all wholesale chains, we save so much money along the way and in the markups, that we can reinvest in a better product, sell it for half the price, and still make a better margin. So everyone wins, except, well, department stores probably. But so this is so beneficial for the consumer that it has a disruptive element in the business model itself, and this is why Warby Parker, why Casper, Dollar Shave Club, Everlane, etc., have been so successful over the past years. So I think if we put it into context, this business model, and while zooming out a little bit in the history of commerce, if you like, and look into the major disruptions of commerce over the last 50 years, maybe even 100 years, you will find that the two major disruptions, I think, that will stand out are on the one side, the verticalization, and on the other side, the digitalization of commerce. Verticalization started in the 40s, 50s, really got a push in the 70s with Zara coming into play, but mainly driven by IKEA, Gap, Zara, H&M, and the likes. And then the digitalization in the 90s, driven by Amazon, later on Zalando, ASOS, Zappos, etc. What we've seen in the last 7 years is kind of a younger generation, a next movement of companies that kind of merge both all the advantages of both disruptions, of the verticalization and the digital approach. So direct to consumer, like Warby Parker and the ones I mentioned before, and this is, that's probably the main difference. We do a couple of other things very different specifically in our business, which then I think is very much, how you enter your specific market. In the luggage and bags market, which is a huge, giant market, it happens to be a very, very, a sleeping giant, as we said. It's an $80 billion market. It grows disproportionately fast, has a disproportionately low online penetration. So with in Europe about 8.5%, you will that means probably the ones who are able to drive the online business in the next couple of years in that special segment will benefit from the development in the next couple of years more than the others. And in the same time, we haven't seen any major innovation in the product development side. A luggage of cabin trolley from the 80s looks pretty much the same as cabin trolley from nowadays. So we had the chance to innovate and disrupt on the product level itself too. Integrating a couple of tech features and services that the industry hasn't seen before. So we're just more digital, more and faster than the rest of the market. Yeah.
So yes, so we're talking about vertical brands and the verticalization of retail. What does that mean exactly for you as a company? So in other words, which activities do you do in-house, and to what extent is that different to traditional business models? And what activities have you outsourced?
We outsource the manufacture of the product, but pretty much everything else we do in-house. So we, obviously all the customer service, all the R&D, all of the design, all of that we do internally. And then we outsource just the manufacturing component, because obviously it's the major cost. And it's where we think we can, in some sense, piggyback off the experience of companies that have been manufacturing for decades.
So you also do, for example, the product development, or the marketing strategy, and of course the selling to the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think all the marketing we do in house, all of we're direct to consumer, so all of the sort of web and sales component. But I think really importantly is on the product development. We started selling mattresses online under a separate business in 2011, and so really we spent 4 or 5 years just developing and optimizing the product, and had hundreds of iterations. sold about 70,000 mattresses and continually sort of optimized off that. And I think getting the product right is the core to everything, really, especially for something like a mattress where you interact every single day and it's crucial that the product is amazing.
So basically what you're doing, you're taking out the middleman, right? Or separate middlemen that in the old traditional retail consumer market take away margin from the brand.
Yeah, I mean, I think in mattresses, the fallacy that we saw is this idea that you need to go into a showroom and lie on a mattress for sort of 15 minutes to test it out properly, you know. We think you need to sleep on the product at home, and for the luxury of going to try it out in store, you end up paying 3 times more than you need because the markups end up being so high across the value chain. So by going direct to consumer, we offer a number of benefits. We say, you know, firstly, you get a better product for a lower price, but also really importantly is we allow people to try the product at home for 100 nights. And so we say, you know, you can sleep on the mattress, you can have sex on it, you can just see if it's the right product instead of lying in the showroom with your feet on a plastic mat for 10 minutes. So we think the value proposition is very sort of superior to the traditional retail one.
Stefan, so I know that when you were part of the Project One organization, meaning you were, you know, with the brand ventures team. So, and I know
Project A, yeah.
Project A,
yeah.
Project A brand ventures.
Yeah.
So basically, I know you looked at a number of segments, from mattresses to others. So you ended up with bags and luggage. Why?
Well,
what was the process, and why eventually did you guys pick that segment?
Right. We actually took the luxury of investigating or analyzing all kinds of consumer good categories in the, for quite some time, and dived into all of them with always keeping in mind, is that a segment, is it a market that is ideal to be disrupted by this kind of business model? And we kind of looked at anything from gardening tools to mattresses or others, and we found that probably that would be my hypothesis. I think in the next couple of years we will see that basically every consumer good category, one after the other, will be disrupted eventually by 1 or 2 players of this applying this kind of business model, because in the end, what I said before, it's too beneficial for the consumer that it won't. But some categories more than others again are, I think, in a better position to be approached now. And for us, some of the criteria for that analysis were, of course, absolute market size is relevant. So when you look at your potential market share that you can get, you want to see that this company doesn't end when it's 50 million in revenue. You want to see it grow much further. You want to see a segment that grows faster than the rest of the consumer goods categories in the next couple of years. We see also, of course, online tradability kind of, so logistics. You want to see a proper, fair ratio, a good, healthy ratio between logistic cost and an average order value and your gross margin. And so if you see all the unit economics and you see the markup factors in the luggage industry, it's kind of, it was almost asking for being disrupted. As Jas just said, it's similar in the luggage industry. If you buy a premium luggage right now in the department store for $4.99, it has a production value of about 49 euros. So just the last step of the value chain triples the price without any benefit for the consumer again. So this is what you end up with in terms of quality. You pay $4.99 in price. So for us, it's fairly easy, and well, it's in the end not easy, but it was possible to actually take a lot of the money that we save with the markups, produce for double the price, sell for half the, produce for double the money, sell for half, and then make even a better margin in the middle.
So talking about unit economics, or let's say key KPIs, Jas, what are the most important KPIs you are measuring as a company, and in that particular business model, of course?
I mean, obviously, revenue growth, cost per acquisition. I think for us, really important is gross margin, because I think this is really where a lot of the benefit in our business model comes over the traditional one. We also look at softer factors like net promoter scores, Trustpilot reviews. You know, this stuff is when customers can't interact with the product in the same way that they can, they go to other sources that they verify. So those are really, really important to us as well. But in terms of the sort of the two core KPIs for us as a business are gross margin and acquisition cost effectively.
Would you agree, Stefan?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
It's very similar. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So in terms of your product strategy, and I think it's not a big secret that obviously you started with a mattress, but you are moving into, let's say, related product areas. So if you look forward, say, in 5 years' time or so, what will your product scope look like? Let's say 5 years or whatever time you want to pick.
I think what's interesting for us is when we look at the category as a whole, there isn't really a sort of a Nike or an Apple of sleep. You know, there isn't a brand that is your go-to for sleep, and so it gives us a pretty broad remit. And I think still as a young company, we sometimes think about how broad we want to push that, and whether you go into technology products or apps, whether you stay within textiles or go into furniture. So I think, you know, we do a lot of user testing, a lot of focus groups. We obviously research very heavily into products, but for now, we're very focused on the core sort of bedding products, and we're looking at sort of the next 12 months. We sort of have our pipeline of things. They all sort of stay relatively close to that. But I think the interesting thing is, like I say, building a brand that owns sleep, really, because I think that, you know, there you have an enormous category, and I think nobody at this stage is owning that.
So now that what you're building is not a mattress brand, but a sleep brand. So
absolutely, yeah. And you know, and from the beginning, we very much focused our branding around that. We had this idea that every great day starts the night before, and really building the brand not around sleep itself and not around the product itself, but focusing very much more on lifestyle and feeling and well-being. And I think this gives us the remit to go much broader with our product selection than a sort of traditional mattress company. When you look at a company like Tempur, who are one of the world's largest mattress brands, they only really have ever been able to do 3 products, you know, because their brand is so built around product specs and composition and density of foam. And I think this doesn't allow you to go very far. But I think with this idea of every great day starts the night before, I mean, it gives you a platform to build a very broad range of products.
So talking about online, building a brand online, obviously that is one key component. Of course, you have to manage your processes, you have to make sure that the conversion rate looks good and all the other KPIs, but obviously one of the key metrics as well in terms of overall strategic point of view is that you need to build a brand. Yeah? And so again, simple question, complex answer. How do you do that? So how have you been building your online brand? What are the instruments, basically?
We had, like I said, a previous mattress company that was very commoditized, and so we sort of understood that really the value in this business will come from the brand very early on. So when we launched Eve, we brought in as a co-founder a guy who was head of sports marketing at Channel 4, had worked at various agencies, and bringing in a sort of very senior co-founder as a head of brand is quite unusual at startups. I think startups think about branding a little bit later. But we had that sort of infused in us from day one, and I think some of the things that you do, I mean, we have a brand team obviously that works on this full time, but it's infusing everything you do with creativity, sort of defining your own tone of voice and sort of putting that through all your communications, sort of keeping a consistency in messaging and visuals. I think, you know, great customer services are very important with that, because referral for us is a huge channel. So yeah, I think those are the core things we focused on, and obviously great marketing.
Yeah. So online marketing, obviously you have, and we're going to come to that in a minute, the offline strategy. So you're cooperating with a number of offline players, also online players, and then of course you have a flagship store as well. So there's an offline element to your strategy as well. We're going to come to that in a second. But and I would totally agree that obviously most startups think about a product first and less about a brand. At least I guess in Europe that's the case. And I think that's something that is the basis for your guys' success. So let's come back to the offline element. So obviously you are building online brands, you want to be 99.9% online, but I would assume that offline does play a certain role also when it comes to brand building. So Stefan, what is your take here on that? How important is it to have an offline element as well?
Well, I think it can be very, very helpful, and we also started here with the hypothesis this is probably going to not only help building trust and being a very good feedback channel for our products and connecting with our audience in the early days. It also will probably have an effect on the marketing efficiency on the performance marketing side. And we wanted to find that out. We started very early on with a very small brand store in Berlin Mitte, actually. Stop by if you can, close to
What's the address?
Huh?
What's the address?
Alte Schönhauser Straße. It's worth for stopping by, of course. It was a kind of it was a pilot store. We always had the idea if we find out that the hypothesis is right, we will probably start rolling out and building. Well, actually, we probably have to build about 10 of these stores in the next 2 years, according to our business plan. So the next one is planned to be built in London, then Stockholm, and other markets where we are already having a good traction in. And so the experience with the brand store is, in fact, that our performance marketing, our prospecting, especially like on Facebook and those kind of channels, with display ads, has a 70% higher marketing efficiency and a better CPO in the end than in comparable regions where we don't have a store, like in Stockholm or Hamburg, for instance. Yeah.
So you have been using the Berlin store, for example, not test product, to get customer feedback. So it's an integral part, I guess, of your marketing strategy again. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you can of course test online and get feedback online a lot, and we have a lot of instruments nowadays to do so. But still, a store helps to get a little bit more of a deeper feedback, and you get different kinds of feedback from the customers when you're in front of them. And if you have set up a good system with your store team, and we have set up a system where we make sure that 90% of our customers are actually also being identified with an email address and so on. So you can actually really build an omni-channel system that is very effective. Yeah.
What's your take on that? What do you guys do offline?
Yeah, I think omni-channel obviously is a big buzzword now, especially with the Amazon Whole Foods thing. I think for us, we look at always how can you do this creatively. And first we started as well with our own sort of pop-up in London. We found for us, although it was a great way to sort of control the brand experience, it was a less scalable way to do it because opening stores across all the countries we're in and across all the cities, it just takes so much time and effort, and also it's probably not where our main focus should be. So for us, we've entered into partnerships with department stores, but running concession models where they don't buy the product for us, so we're not doing anything wholesale, but instead we're effectively renting store space in return for a commission, which is much, much lower than a normal wholesale one would be. And that allows us to design and brand the sort of spot ourselves. Even though they sell other mattresses, we put a sign on saying like the world's most comfortable mattress, so it's pretty funny. They allow us to staff it ourselves, and so we have much bigger control. And then in the end, we acquire the customer. We handle the delivery, we handle the returns, we do the customer services. So it allows us sort of to stay true to our brand, but still having a much more scalable way of rolling out the brand across department stores across Europe.
And also you have been partnering with Channel 4. How important?
Big up Vinay, our investors, just here.
So how important has Channel 4 been for you guys in terms of?
Well, I guess I got to be positive because Vinay's there. No, amazing. For us as well, part of building the brand, and I wanted to say this actually, was TV has been really crucial for us. And the partnership with Channel 4 allowed us to go on TV much earlier than we could have. They worked really closely with us and sort of helping us understand how to make that channel work. And it sort of puts a little bit of defensibility between other sort of startups in a similar category. Because I think TV, especially when you're building a brand, it just has such a perception of value that it sort of offers you as a company. So for us, it's been really, really important. And it's actually something we've continued to roll out across Europe. And now we run TV campaigns in France, in Germany, and also in Italy, Poland, Netherlands as of this month too.
And of course, if you watch US TV, you will see Casper all of the time. So
unfortunately, yeah. That's why we don't watch TV in the US.
I think that's a question. Yes. Can you please the mic?
Hello. It's working very closely. Here, if this works. I'll try to speak as loud as I can.
Perfect.
It was interesting to hear that actually both you said that the the offline store concept.
There's another one coming.
That works better. It was interesting to hear that for both of you, the, let's say, offline store was an important element in, let's say, spreading your reach and acquiring new customers. So just how easy is it, or how can you really develop a truly digital brand, or how much of an offline element will you always need in whatever you do next in your concept?
Who wants to take it?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and we've been discussing internally. I think I can say so much in the last, probably 12 months. 2016 was our first full year in business, but since the beginning, mainly, we've been talking about that. And I think it comes to the question how fast you want to scale. I think you can actually create sufficient growth over the first couple of years, and we've been growing 35% every month over month since day one mainly. And you can keep on growing for quite some time online like this, but at some point we also think it makes sense to get into the physical spaces. So similar to what Jas just said, our approach is a little different. Our product is a bit different. So you don't really need to sleep on it, but we want to give it into the hands or get a direct physical experience with the product. And so we have developed a terminal, actually. It's kind of a digital selling point with a product involved where you can order right away. And this is going to be installed now in about 15 other stores around Europe, actually, because we have been approached by more than 250 retailers around the world, including Selfridges, Harrods, etc. They all want to list our product, and we didn't want to give away completely on this opportunity. So that's our kind of way of answering to that, still keeping kind of consistent with our story direct to consumer in this sense. Yeah.
Are there any other questions at this stage? Yes, Stefan.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, just a question to understand your company's growth. Was Amazon or is Amazon also important for you? Are you working with Amazon? Or do you do your sales only on your platform?
We work with Amazon. It's a great place, especially for reviews. So we started with them mainly to build up a sort of good reviews base online, but it's a very minimal channel for us. I mean, for us, 97% of our sales really come from our own website. But, you know, there's obviously no disadvantage through being on there, really.
And Stefan, you're not selling through Amazon?
No, we do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, well, we've been invited by this. They have something called the Lounge Pad. Is a special section where you have to be invited, and then you get also special conditions. And that was attractive to test out, and it proves to be a really good channel for us too. So we can scale over this marketplace model quite fast, quite efficiently, and we also. In general, identified marketplaces as to be a very good channel for us. We start right now with Farfetch worldwide, entering the US and Asia. And this way, again, we stick to our direct-to-consumer through, in this case, through marketplaces, but still not following into the wholesale model, and still can take advantage of scaling through bigger players. Yeah.
Tim.
Because we are talking about building up brands, I'm very interested how you think about using traditional media channels. So let's say for you it must be important out of home, let's say at the airport, or you were talking about TV. So how important is that building up a brand in a new economy like we have digital?
I think when you're being disruptive, it's very important because you're telling a story in some sense to people. About half of our marketing budget now comes through offline, effectively. So most of that is TV, but we do advertising in the underground, in the tube. We do posters a little bit as well. And I think it's just, it's a great way to sort of tell your brand story. So for example, when we did advertising in the London Underground, we did long copy ads where we would really tell just a story about why we're different, and they worked incredibly well for us. And that's something we've taken into our TV campaigns as well. You get just more sort of real estate than you do with your 3 lines on AdWords.
Any other questions at this stage? So, yes, as you said, and I guess that is, of course, very critical, that you can have a very nice brand perception. If the customer is not happy with the product, all brand is nothing. So then, obviously, the management of your manufacturer is very important. So in other words, how do you guys ensure that the service levels that you expect from your manufacturer are actually met? So obviously you have outsourced that part. It's a critical part, but I guess you figured you're not the best party to do that. So how do you manage that relationship that's so critical?
Well, I think the first thing is you've got to find a great manufacturer. That's a process that took us years. We worked with many different people. Once you sort of settle on that, then I think some of the things we do, every 200th mattress goes through a testing machine that sort of monitors what it would look like after 10 years of usage. So it sort of rolls and compresses the product. We have our own R&D guys and QA people who sort of spend a lot of time at the factories testing the product. And obviously, reactively, we're incredibly focused on reviews and customer services. So, we have a 9.7 Trustpilot score, Net Promoter was 74 on the last count. So it's stuff we take really, really seriously, because I think without a great product, you can't build a great brand.
And another important, I guess, KPI that we haven't talked about yet, that's a classic e-commerce KPI certainly, is the return rate. And in your IPO prospectus, you have actually stated your current number, 15%. But you want to, and you said in that document that you're actually, of course, decreasing that number even further. So how do you manage that? Is that a customer satisfaction? Is that a clearer communication of what the product is? I mean, what are your instruments to decrease that return rate even further? The core one is really understanding the reasons for those returns, right? So whether it's that the product is too hot or that it's too firm or whatever it is, that gives you sort of starting point from which to optimize. So we do a lot of sort of post-return analytics on the reasons people send it back. There's things you can do as well. I mean, sometimes we send out a topper or some other product that will make the product softer or cooler to help if we can. But in the UK, but ultimately it's just come from optimizing and improving the product. In the UK, when we started, we were around 17% return rate. We've got that down to just under 13% now. It's 15% because we're a little bit higher in Europe, because again, most of those markets are earlier markets for us, but again, it sort of comes down over time, and we think we can get it to a level somewhere between sort of 10 and 12%, which is pretty low for e-commerce generally, especially when you consider this isn't like sort of shoes that you can leave in your cupboard. I mean, you have to interact with this product every day and sleep on it for 8 hours a day. So we make returns so easy that if the experience isn't perfect, people will send it back. Yeah. So, Stefan, your product is, I guess, perceived by customers as a very innovative one. Maybe you can elaborate about that. Obviously, you're building a brand, but again, here you also need a good product. So, to what extent is your luggage different from the mainstream?
Yeah, what we did is we wanted to create a product that, on the one side, if you compare it directly with 2-3 dominant players in the premium luggage segment, well, Rimowa and Tumi, we wanted to be competitive when it comes to every element, from the wheels to the buckles to the zipper pulls, obviously to the body, the hard shell material, and we wanted to make sure that we ideally are on the same level or better with any of these components, because that's the fundament of the quality of the material. It's still a quality decision that the customer makes. We want them to not be customers. We want them to become fans and tell all their friends and say, hey, you need to get one too. What we then on top did differently is we integrated technical elements and services that we thought are helpful for our customers, which are mainly the younger generation, the next generation of travelers, as we say, 25 to 45 years old, both men and women, and they travel a lot, they're urban nomads, and they're always on their phone, they're constantly connected, always on the go. So one use case was obvious. Everyone had the problem that in the afternoon the smartphone was empty, the battery was empty, so we integrated a battery into the luggage. That's when you need it the most, when you're traveling. That's not a technology revolution, but it was already more innovative than 99% of the market, and it was very well received. We integrated on top a GPS module that you can get optionally. So for those who travel a lot, they have everyone has experienced then luggage getting lost. 25 million pieces of luggage get lost every year. To know where it is, it's in Kuala Lumpur and not in Heathrow, where I am, helps you that you don't need to go to Lost and Found. In a later stage, we will be connected with the airlines, with the airport infrastructures, and then you have a really a more seamless travel experience that we can deliver. And we are doing a personal travel assistant. That's another feature that we're the only ones in the world offering that exclusively to our customers. So as a Horizn customer, you get a 24/7 worldwide access, like a personal assistant at your hand who books your flights, changes your flights, finds you the coolest restaurant in Hong Kong if you have never been before, and books your table, etc. We're not doing that ourselves. That's what we have outsourced. Our white labeling partner for that is quintessentially in London. So that is a very good value for our customers. Again, is small things and services that help us stand out and make sure we show a little bit more effort and innovation than the traditional players out there. Leads to return rates of 3.5% in our case. We're very happy about that, and leads to that BMW has chosen us after researching the luggage market for 12 months and chose us to work with us on their own BMW smart luggage range for the next 5 years. So there's going to be a co-branded range, Horizn for BMW now. And that shows, I think, also for us at least, it's flattering, but also it's a good feedback and proof that we have been doing in terms of design and technology standards, setting the bar in the industry.
And yes, so we were talking about Horizn's target customers. Who are you targeting? Obviously the younger generation, or is it the broader population? So who's buying a mattress at Eve?
When we started, we assumed it would be younger people, millennials, but actually we found mainly, possibly because, in the end, a mattress, especially in the UK, it tends to be homeowners who buy, but we over-index with every income group from 35,000 a year to 150, and age-wise, pretty much everybody over the age of 30. So it's pretty broad. Yes, it's pretty broad, but index is slightly older and slightly wealthier.
Very interesting. So what is your growth strategy, Stefan? So obviously you are in full swing, you are doing a nice job, you're growing very nicely, but of course growth companies continue to obtain funds. So if you had a new funding round today, what would you do? So in other words, where are you growing? Are you growing geographically? Are you extending your product scope? Are you spending money on marketing? So what's your growth strategy? What lies ahead?
Well, there are several, let's say, several channels that we want to grow within. One is the direct channel. So customer acquisition works mainly through all performance marketing channels, including display, prospecting on Facebook, etc. There we see still a lot of potential and growth, both in Europe, and we haven't even really started in the US or Asia. So that alone would give sufficient. I would have enough usage for the next capital round just on that channel. But on the other hand, at the same time, as I mentioned before, we see marketplaces as a relevant and helpful channel for us to grow, together with Farfetch, together with Amazon over the next in the next coming years, to grow also faster and more efficiently internationally. The good thing about a collaboration with Farfetch is, for someone like us, of course they take care of the shipping. They have different shipping and also in general operations support that we get from there, so we don't have to set up a full business in the US right away. We just go along with them, and that helps a lot. We look also in terms of customer acquisition from a media perspective. We look into other channels like TV. We think that can still work. It is definitely a different landscape nowadays than it is if you look at it from a performance marketing perspective. It has a different. You have a different market there now than you had maybe at times with when Zalando or Trivago started to do that. But we think there's still, with a slightly different strategy, quite something to get out of it. And we actually believe quite a lot into our terminals. I think the terminals, but that goes too far. They have just amazing economics behind that. So they're extremely efficient, very, very, very quickly profitable. And if you can imagine them to be in 100 or 1,000 hotel lobbies in the world, airport spaces, so we're now testing them in Munich, Frankfurt, and Hamburg. We're going to be in the Soho House lobbies, in the Ritz-Carlton actually, in design hotels lobbies. And if you see, that's actually a pretty good scalable channel. Yeah.
I think we could keep going here for hours.
Sorry for that.
Just one last question to you guys. How frightened should your legacy competitors be?
I mean, they should be worried. You know, I don't think we're gonna. I don't think retail is sort of gonna die, but I just think we're gonna continue to take market share from them. So they should be worried.
Stefan?
I think very well put. I think worried is probably the right term. In the same time, I think what we know already, we've been approached by all major players in our market already, and we can say they're super curious about how we're doing things, and they want to learn. One problem is they can maybe learn how to integrate faster innovation into their products, but what they cannot learn is how to create that business model, because they're caught in their wholesale business model, so they cannot get out of that soon. Yeah.
So unfortunately, I think we have to wrap up now. Personally, I think your business models are really cool business models, not just from a customer perspective, but also from a financial perspective. And I'm a financial guy, so you've taken care of your unit economics. You're growing. You're building unique brands. So it's a wonderful story, and I wish you all the best in the world for the next quarters, years, and a lot of growth. I would like to thank you, of course, for being here today and for sharing your insight. And of course, I'd like to thank you, the audience, for being here. Thank you so much, and have a great day at NOAH.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bjoern. Thanks.